If you were to ask me to name the single most contentious figure of the late Roman Empire, you might immediately call up a few candidates. But arguably, the most intensely polarizing of them all is Constantine the Great. When it comes to Constantine, the historical verdict is rarely moderate. You either fiercely admire him or you deeply resent him. In this video, we're going to re-examine this astonishing yet divisive personality in Roman history. We will analyze his commendable actions, the ones that brought stability and progress to the empire, and, crucially, his catastrophic errors that ultimately sowed the seeds of its ruin. I'm going to present a powerful conclusion that is likely to stir up its own controversy. Constantine, despite being hailed as the Great, was the very man who set the entire Western Roman Empire and the ancient city of Rome itself on the path to inevitable collapse. The 4th century AD stands out as arguably the most dramatic period of transformation the Roman Empire ever faced. If you could travel back to the year 300 AD and visit various Roman cities, the atmosphere would still feel fundamentally Roman. The people would still be dedicated to the traditional pantheon of Roman deities. Cities would be dominated by immense temples, forums, and architecture that had stood largely unchanged for centuries. The great theaters and gladiatorial arenas would be packed with roaring crowds. Yet, if you were to travel to the late 4th century, the mood would be distinctly different. You would see the first signs of abandoned or decaying Roman temples. In their place, the silhouettes of numerous Christian churches would be rising across the urban landscape. Architectural styles were also beginning to shift, giving us the first glimpses of what we now call Proto-Byzantine design. Simultaneously, the quality and artistry of Roman coinage suffered a drastic decline. Even the Roman army itself was changing. By the end of the century, its appearance was less like the classical Roman legions and increasingly reflected Germanic influences. The architect of this massive transformation was Constantine. Born in Naissus, modern Serbia, in 272 AD, his youth was marked by the chaos, plagues, and civil wars of the 3rd century crisis. His father, Constantius, was a Roman officer, and his mother, Helena, was a woman of humble background and an early Christian. This exposed the young Constantine to Christianity, even as he maintained a public pagan facade. He served in the Eastern court as a virtual hostage under Emperor Diocletian. When his father became Augustus of the West, Constantine joined him in Britain, where he gained vital military experience fighting the Picts. In 306 AD, after his father's death, his troops proclaimed him Augustus, a direct defiance of the established tetrarchy system. This set the stage for his supreme ambition. He marched on Italy, securing his place after the pivotal Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 AD. Over the next decade, from 312 to 324 AD, he systematically crushed every rival, emerging as the sole, undisputed ruler of the entire Roman world. Constantine's proponents point to several powerful achievements. 1. Military commander. He was undeniably a highly effective military leader. He stabilized Hadrian's Wall, repeatedly defeated the Franks and Alemanni, and even restored parts of the long-lost province of Dacia by crushing the Goths. He dedicated immense resources to defending the empire from external threats. 2. Abolition of gladiatorial games. This remains one of his most significant moral acts. He issued multiple laws to systematically crack down on the barbaric practice of gladiatorial combat, ending centuries of cruel entertainment for the masses. 3. Dismantling the Praetorian Guard. Following the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, he permanently disbanded the Praetorian Guard, ending their 3-century-long reign of terror where they routinely murdered and installed emperors at will. 4. The gold solitus. He introduced the gold solitus, a coin of exceptionally high purity, 98 to 99% gold, replacing the heavily debased coinage of the crisis era. This single act restored confidence in the Roman currency and stabilized the financial system. 5. Founding Constantinople. For those focused on the long-term survival of the Roman legacy, this is paramount. His new city became the strategic, political, and cultural bedrock for the Byzantine Empire, a structure that would endure for a millennium. Why then is he so reviled? Because his great decisions were often catastrophic for others. 1. Crippling the West. By shifting the economic, political, and cultural center of gravity to his new eastern capital, he essentially drained the lifeblood from the West. Most fatally, he confiscated the Western Praetorian fleets, rendering the Western Mediterranean defenseless. Many historians argue that the true first sack of Rome occurred in 326 AD, when Constantine systematically plundered the ancient city of its finest statues, artwork, senators, and artisans to adorn Constantinople. This left the West vulnerable, leading directly to its collapse just 70 years later. 2. The Supreme General System. In his neglect of the West, he consolidated all military power under a single position, the Magister Militum. This excessive power concentration later empowered ambitious and often treacherous generals like Ricimer, who frequently engaged in civil wars or simply murdered the emperors they were supposed to serve, ensuring the system's collapse from within. 3. Flawed military reforms. His reform created a clear two-tier army system, the well-paid mobile comitatens, and the poorly equipped static border guards limitani. This weakening of the frontier defenses made barbarian invasions far more likely. Worse, he dramatically increased the recruitment of Germanic foederati, federated soldiers, often allowing them to retain their own leaders, thus corrupting the core command structure of the Roman army. 4. Social disaster via economic policy. While the gold Selinus was good, his failure to stabilize the bronze and silver coinage led to decades of severe inflation. His social policies were worse. He granted tax exemption to Christians, alienating the vast majority of the pagan population, and he issued laws tying peasants to their land as coloni, the foundation of the medieval feudal system. These disillusioned, oppressed peasants later welcomed the Germanic invaders in the 400s as liberators. His sixth, and arguably most damaging act, was laying the groundwork for religious intolerance. Despite initial public claims of tolerance, he increasingly began to actively favor Christianity. Tax exemption was only part of this. He created legal precedents that allowed his successors to become ever more hostile to the old Greco-Roman faith. By placing Christianity in a privileged position, he intensely polarized Roman society. This alienation from the traditional pagan elites and common people led to bitter religious clashes. Ultimately, these disillusioned pagan citizens had little incentive to fight for an empire that had betrayed its traditional identity and treated them unfairly, leaving them to passively watch as that empire disintegrated. The historian James W. Emertinger compared the fall of the Roman Empire to an elderly patient who died of a stroke. The patient might have suffered from long-term abuse like smoking or drinking. Constantine, in this analogy, is likened to Rome's first cigarette or first night of reckless drunken carousing. Though the consequences weren't immediate, he fundamentally sowed the seeds of Rome's destruction by prioritizing his new vision over the stability and tradition of the old empire. Historical figures are rarely flawless. While Constantine achieved truly great things, his immense flaws, particularly the abandonment and weakening of the West, had fatal consequences. If you mourn the fall of the Western Roman Empire and the decline of the magnificent city of Rome, you will likely view Constantine negatively. If, however, you value the survival and legacy of the Byzantine East, you will likely see him as a necessary genius. The true beauty of Roman history lies in the fact that multiple valid angles and interpretations can coexist. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Constantine in the comments.